My name's Zach. I'm your cult boyfriend. I'm wearing this shirt. I feel like it's the most it's the closest approximation that I have to Seth Cohen energy, which I already feel like I naturally possess to begin with. Hi, we're talking about the OC today. Um we just got done analyzing and exploring every season, every character, everything about One Tree Hill. Um, these shows, I think, don't get compared to each other enough, but I think that they should. Honestly, they came out in the same year, 2003. I think that One Tree Hill had a stronger hold on my generation. Like I was 13 in 2003, and I think that those two shows and the media that came out at the time, the music that was popular then, the video games that were taking off, the fashion, I think a lot of it, I think that my generation was greatly molded and shaped by things like One Tree Hill and the OC. But I think, yes, that One Tree Hill is far more visible in my generation. It might be due to the fact that One Tree Hill was around for 9 seasons, but also One Tree Hill was simply a better show, especially during its first 4 seasons. The OC only ran for 4 seasons. And One Tree Hill, while they ran for nine, their first four, those are masterpieces. Those are incredible pieces of television. It's art. It's teen drama pop art, and it doesn't really get any better than One Tree Hill's first 4 seasons. I think that One Tree Hill, yeah, better represents my generation, but that isn't to say that the OC didn't have a huge say in culture. I have more memories of the OC growing up than I did of One Tree Hill. And it was also on a network, like a big network like Fox, and you can feel that too. You can feel that. There feels, we'll get into it into the when we get into the analysis part. But I had so many memories of this show, but apparently every memory that I have is only of the first season. So I have no idea where anything goes from here. I thought I remembered so much. Then again, it's a 27 episode long first season, and so much happens. Honestly, so much really does. And yeah, I think it's really important to go into the OC, and really dive into it and analyze what it's about, because there's also a lot of similarities to One Tree Hill. Its premise, its concept, its ambitions, probably. Uh, but the OC is extremely important, down to its actors. Those people are legendary, right? Of that specific time in those specific roles. Like Misha Barton was not only on my wall, but she was in my heart. And Adam Brody was a pretty a generation defining kind of archetype. Like he became a huge figure because of this show. And Rachel Bilson, I think, was every 13-year-old boy's crush, you know. And Ben McKenzie, well, whatever. He was cool too, but like I can't really say much about Ben McKenzie's impact in at the time. Then again, One Tree Hill, yeah, it doesn't get better than Chad Michael Murray. It honestly does not at all. So One Tree Hill, better show. But I think that they're both like pretty interesting. And I think that they are both trying to communicate similar ideas. Do we want to start with the similarities? Because that will come with criticisms. I'd rather not. Let me momentarily just talk about Adam Brody, who is brilliant on this show. He's intensely good. Adam Brody is perfect. He makes me laugh so many times every episode. And of course, characters that can make you laugh, if they can emote as well, then they can definitely make you feel a variety of different ways, especially sad ones. When when Seth Cohen is sad, because I identified with him so much and because I found him to be so clever and to be so funny, I definitely felt so much more for him because the pathos was undeniable, considering that the comedy felt so truthful and absorbing about Seth Cohen. Adam Brody is an intensely good performer on this show. He's easily the best part of the show. Seth Cohen is intensely enjoyable. Seth is extremely narcissistic. The tragedy of self-obsession. I hate how much of myself I see in him because he's so flawed, but I love him. He's the best character. Mazzy Star makes quite a few appearances with Into Dust. And I mean, I don't know. I kind of like Mazzy Star. I don't know. Maybe it's a rumor, but whatever. Let's dive directly into my notes. It's somehow simultaneously more polished and more gritty than One Tree Hill. The thing about Ryan compared to Lucas is that there is nothing exceptional about Ryan. No hidden and remarkable talent or insight. In a way, this is Sandy's experiment, his stand. It might be partly narcissistic in that ultra rich liberal way of showy, expensive selflessness. The problem with the show's premise is fairly obvious when compared directly to One Tree Hill. Lucas Scott had an axe to grind, an enemy to vanquish, and a social hierarchy to transcend. Ryan has none of those things. He has no rebellious motivation, no confrontational driving force. It's not a good basis for a show. He is the least interesting component of the core four. While he should have been immediately arresting, I forgot to include in my notes that that's almost pun worthy. And he should have been immediately arresting as opposed to immediately arrested. You can dislike the video now out of cringe embarrassment for me. And emotionally captivating. Marissa, Seth, and Summer are far more postmodern than Ryan is. It's a true design flaw that is impossible to see beyond. It was really cool to see Doug Liman direct the first couple episodes. Doug Liman directed Go, one of my favorite films, and I think he brought some of that Go swingers energy, but even in a bit more polished, but also, like I said, in a more gritty way. It seems to be a bit conflicted on what kind of show it's trying to be at first. It perfectly understands itself within 10 episodes. And it's one of the most like clear and confident shows that I've watched in a very long time. The OC is the revenge of the cliches in a large way. It's a very clever show. It's wonderfully written, structured beautifully. Its weaknesses seem to be of the product of network studio notes and an unwillingness to commit too early to what could possibly be too philosophically confrontational. But it understands plot structure and how to perfectly design an episode. The OC can hit several arcs through the course of 27 episodes while maintaining its grip on the original intent of the pilot. This is quite an accomplishment. I suppose I wanted that original intent to be more nonconformist, but we should honestly analyze the show on its own terms. It was decidedly conformist. Those terms just lack guts because it's often too seduced by its own examination of wealth and plastic beauty to penetrate the intrinsic hypocrisy and narcissism beneath. A part I really loved was, and then they repeat it a few times because it's so fucking baller. You know what I love about rich kids? Bam! Nothing. The core four. Ryan, Marissa, Seth, and Summer. Icons. There is a problem, though, and I might irritate some OC fans out there with this, but it's difficult to ignore after watching, like One Tree Hill and Dawson's Creek, or even Buffy, or Veronica Mars. Those shows have an intense amount of natural chemistry between its players, between its actors. For the OC, chemistry is a big problem. The best chemistry is found within Sandy. Peter Gallagher is intense, man. He's so fucking good on this show, and he's so likable, and he's so empathetic, and he's so admirable in a large way. I like Sandy a lot, and it's probably the best thing I've ever seen Peter Gallagher do. He's very impressive, very charismatic, and just uh, he seems to be very emotionally sincere and honestly wants the best. And I can't hold. He seems to also recognize the ultra rich, like hypocrisy that seems to surround this, like, I don't know, like liberal megaplex. There's this weird shit that he lives in, of hyper privileged individuals. He definitely recognizes that hypocrisy, and I think he's using Ryan as some sort of rebellious social experiment. But it, of course, means a lot more to him. But at the same time, it does still feel like there is untapped potential there for some sort of antagonistic truism to be found, where Ryan does feel like a pet project sometimes, you know. I wish he would say more often that he's not a charity case, or like rebel or reject certain things rather than embrace them immediately, because like Sandy is being entirely presumptuous and very, 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 I think, smothering. um like it's his like white knight quest to save the youth. I wish they talked about how like Chino, how Ryan's Chino, and every character that we see from Chino is a little bit more than just an archetype. They are true characters who've had to make their own way to make their own flawed archetype. Like they had to, they're real people. And I wish that they understood, or that Ryan seemed to understand, or that Seth seemed to care, because he's definitely someone who could hyperanalyze and deconstruct his own kind of situation. That Ryan is trying to be made into a pod person, and it's not like, we'll get into it in a minute, probably, but you understand where I'm going with that. But at least Sandy has great chemistry with everybody that he talks to. Wonderful chemistry. You really feel something powerful whenever Sandy is there doing his darndest. Ryan and Seth have a great deal of chemistry too. I like it. It's a good bond. And I love the confrontational energy between Seth and Anna. Oh, Team Anna, by the way. Fucking 100%. The triangle is very entertaining. Yeah, Team Anna. I love Summer. I love her. She's great. But Anna, that's wifey material, my friend. When a girl gives you a ticket to a Bright Eyes concert, when a girl has two of them, and intended for dating purposes, you follow that up with a proposal. You dedicate your life to that beautiful blonde emo comic book geek from heaven. I don't know. Team Anna all the way though. Samara Armstrong, is that how you say her name? Really great. Anna, I would have chosen you. I'm not surprised that Seth did it, because I think that Seth is entirely narcissistic, and I think that to him, the idea of being able to live his childhood wet dreams is far more important to him than actual romantic chemistry, because these kids aren't even, I don't think they're even brought up with that as some sort of valid thing to search for. I mean, Sandy and Kirsten are different, but these are things that aren't penetrated at all, that I think could have provided a lot more substance for the show, so it could compete with something that's philosophically grappling and very, very edge of your seat and confrontational, like One Tree Hill was. And also, Ryan and Marissa don't really have great energy too much, except for when they make out on the Ferris wheel in episode 9. That was pretty hot. And over time, Seth and Summer, they build some sincere chemistry, but it takes a lot of work. It's never easy for chemistry to feel genuine on the OC, but it's still eminently watchable. The romantic chemistry is the hard part, like Joshua Jackson and Katie Holmes. Immediate chemistry on Dawson's Creek. Chad Michael Murray and Hilary Burton. Undeniable, immediate electric energy on One Tree Hill. The OC doesn't have that kind of electricity between any of its stars. Like I said, over time, Seth and Summer are able to build like a facsimile of that, but it still doesn't feel genuine. And a teen drama that's lacking like true chemistry, like true sexual tension or romantic tension between its principals, those that's hard. That's a hard thing to do. And while I may have already talked about how beautiful Misha Barton and Rachel Bilson and like Samara Armstrong are, Kelly Rowan, Kirsten from Candyman 2, might I add, is breathtaking. She's the true knockout of the OC. That woman is a goddess. Okay? Moving on. Don't want to alienate anybody who actually watches me for my insight and not my creepy thirst. Oh, okay. I wrote this down like episode 12, the secret, where Luke finds out that his like dad's closeted. Um there are so many needle drops for We Used to Be Friends, and I don't know if you can see her. Over there. Over there. There's Veronica. There's Veronica. This show reminded me that we are mere months away from the era of Veronica Mars, considering that Dandy Warhol's bop is a theme for Veronica Mars. I love Veronica Mars. I have like two tattoos of Veronica Mars. I have Veronica's name on my body twice. So every opportunity I get to pointlessly talk about the show is something I have to do. It's like, I'm obligated to do it. Something I found interesting walking around the mall. It was in the Chrismica episode, actually. All your problems could be solved by the right nail polish or pair of shoes. That's comforting. That's something that Marissa says. Marissa steals an artifact of care from the mall. Presents, an item of comfort from the mall. I honestly think that that's really interesting to think about. And it's definitely something that a certain generation of kids and teenagers were definitely brought up like feeling. And I feel that same way. Sometimes when I'm sad, I go to the mall here in Orlando and I just walk around. Maybe I spend money, maybe I fucking don't. I don't know. Something about the atmosphere, the color scheme, those things that are um, necessarily designed to make you consume and shop more and be more, robotic or zombie-like. It calms me down and it makes me feel cared for. Probably because it makes you feel like you're good enough to be a target for tokens of affection and love, and even I can feel it. I'm definitely nowhere near wealthy, but it has to be like hyper excessive or exaggerated or magnified if you are, and you're definitely brought up to equate materialism and shopping and consumerism, nice shiny shit with, with comfort, with care, with signs that show that someone cares about you, even that manufacturers care about you or corporations do. I really vibe with Marissa at the mall, like, genuinely saying that, like, she does feel better here, and it's not like an empty, vapid statement that she's making. It's not played for that sort of, commentary. It's not. It's played for something a lot more tragic, and, the tragedy of Marissa Cooper is that she's the most alienated character on the show. She might be the only truly living girl in Newport Beach. And I relate to that a lot. And I see that in a lot of other people my age too. Well, I think it's a universal concept. Um, the world can really alienate you, and you're never more alienated than when you are found to be comforted by the very symbols of alienation that have made you so dispossessed and disenchanted in the first place, like malls and mall culture and that sort of thing. It's a really touching moment. I honestly think I remember the Chrismica episode, and I definitely watched the New Year's Eve episode when it aired because I remember being like 13 and seeing Seth make out with Anna, after making you think that like I don't know, it was still up in the air, the Summer and Anna thing. That's something I remember that was like culturally important. That was stuff that like kids actually did talk about at school, like, who's hotter, who would you rather pick? I don't it's definitely like a real thing. It's definitely like a real memory that I have. Um, and I remember seeing that and actually talking about it at school with my friends. And, you know, it's just a nostalgic thing for me, I guess. Nothing really substantial there except to show that like the show had demonstrable impact, you know. But Marissa's interesting because she rejects the status quo and she performs more emotional acts of rebellion than Ryan. She binge drinks, she overdoses, she tries to kill herself, she steals, she rejects her family, she disavows her mother. Yeah, she is definitely more rebellious than Ryan ever was. Like, what is the purpose of having Ryan if he's not supposed to be a catalyst for Marissa's rejection of the ultra rich, self-obsessed culture of Newport Beach? Like, there's no purpose to him then. Like, he doesn't he's such a conformist. He's such a conformist being surrounded by people who would rebel at this time with or without him, honestly. Everyone but Ryan seems to actively try not to fit into the strict social parameters of Newport Beach. Fuck, man, even Summer, just by going public with her love for Seth Cohen and admitting to herself that she does love Seth Cohen and giving her virginity to Seth Cohen, or at least sharing that with him. Sandy bringing him in was an act of liberal rebellion. While Kirsten choosing to adopt him, now that was something more sincere than rebellion. It was pity and affection. Kirsten is She hits different. I find her to be a lot more truthful than Sandy because she's a lot more involved than Sandy. Sandy is living off of Kirsten's money and has this freedom to criticize everything about the Newport Beach ultra rich community. Um, Kirsten's occasional rejection of um, the self-obsessed ethos of Newport Beach it hits way harder and cuts a lot deeper. I got emotional on the show once at the very, very end of the show. Kirsten crying in the pool house after Ryan's left. He went back to Chino to try to care for Teresa's baby that might be his. Kirsten crying? That made me emotional. What, with that Jeff Buckley song soaring over her? Kelly Rowan is a really gifted actor in the sense that I didn't know I was on a very intense emotional journey with her until she started to go to some very personal places. Um, Her characterization was really incredible, and that's a ridiculously well designed character. Kirsten's definitely one of the best characters as well. It would be Seth, Kirsten, and then Sandy. Those are the best characters on the show. Marissa is really good, but I feel that Marissa, um, I don't know where we're going with Marissa, right? Um, Misha Barton, I think, is fucking stunning, right? I think she's beautiful. No one would argue with me about that. Is she the best actor ever? No, she's probably the weakest on the show. But, and I can't pretend and act as if this was deliberate. She's maybe not the best actor, generally speaking, but she's the most perfect for this show. She seems to embody the show's ethos the most. And if she delivers lines a bit vacantly or a bit alien, with a disingenuous sounding emotion applied to it, it adds to the authenticity of the show in its own way because that's definitely how young girls act who live in those ultra rich narcissistic communities, mostly because that's how they're designed by their environment to behave, um, like some sort of black-eyed, too skinny, sad, but undeniably perfect looking model. And just like the model homes, Marissa is a model of not only the beauty, the undeniable beauty and luxury of Newport Beach, she's also a model of everything that's devastating about it and how it corrupts nearly everything that it touches in its own kind of secretive way. It's a way that you can't see because if you just look at the effects, it just looks beautiful. It just looks like Marissa Cooper. It just looks flawless. But if you take a second longer and look a little bit deeper, you'll see the suicide attempts. you'll see all the disorders, emotional, and you'll see something that there's no turning back from. I feel like there's a lot of F. Scott Fitzgerald here, to be honest. I'm a fan of the character of Luke as himbo comic relief. He was pretty fun to have around. And Holy Moses, Eric Balfour was everywhere in this time. I've talked about him a lot. He's in everything like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, 6 Feet Under, Texas Chainsaw Remake. Can't hardly wait. I can't list them all because he was in fucking everything. It's not a bad thing. He has a face that was made for the year 2003. Happy to have him. These ultra rich, insulated communities treat their lives as soap opera, telenovela. And now we're getting into my postmodern reading of the show. And it's already there. It's already inherent with the conflict, or it should have been more visible with the conflict between an outsider, a poor outsider, a criminal class being absorbed within this ultra rich and super polished community of narcissists. But it wasn't because that criminal ended up being the most conformist of the core four. I swear to God, Marissa is the most rebellious, like teenage character in this whole show, and I don't know what the point of Ryan was, because I feel like Marissa would have been pushed to this point without him. She was definitely heading down this road of punk rejection because yeah, in the first episode she even like bonds with Seth over listening to punk music, and it mortifies Seth because he's like, I can't believe listen to the same fucking music as Marissa Cooper, fucking shoot me. That just speaks to Seth's self-obsession, right? Because and elitism. Marissa Cooper was already about to explode. I understand the point of Ryan if he just shows up and just literally just wants to be accepted by everyone, as opposed to like Lucas Scott. What would Lucas Scott from One Tree Hill do in Newport Beach? He would transcend the status quo to reach a new sincerity immediately and be really confrontational and hot about it. But everyone is a player and everyone loves to create melodramatic storylines, meta narratives, and love triangles intentionally, with a privileged deliberation. The postmodern condition is a decidedly formulaic one. Our lives may not be cinematic, as Dawson's Creek would posit, but the OC insists that our lives are episodic, with cliffhangers, special guests, quick wit, and emo kisses. The show is incredibly well designed. It's a perfectly designed show. And for the record, the boat was named after you, Summer. Yeah. Structurally, it is pretty flawless. Like the writers, the showrunner, they know how to create a very, very good episode. A very, very good episode. And I don't know if it's something that One Tree Hill had like maybe a little bit more edge or freedom to express more edge, given that they weren't on like Fox, the main network, right? They were on WB and then the CW. There's probably a little bit more freedom to be a bit more confrontational because it's definitely the criticisms, the commentary, the aggression, the postmodern aggression, the rebellious kind of aggression and rejection of like the bourgeois that I want is visible. It's just not enormously available to interact with. The most you can interact with it is through Marissa, who who was a great anchor for that kind of rejection, but it should have been Ryan. Ryan should have been the one who was immediately confrontational with like the plastic surroundings. I understand. You feel like you get a golden ticket and you get to stay with this wonderful family. But I just wish there was something exceptional about Ryan. I wish that Ryan was a bit more of a free thinker. I mean, because I don't know Ryan's philosophy. I watched him for 27 hours. I don't know what he believes at all. You can spend 10 minutes with Chad Michael Murray as Lucas Scott, and you know exactly how he feels about the class social stratification of Tree Hill, North Carolina. and he doesn't feel very fucking happy with it. Ryan doesn't seem to have those criticisms. Ryan wants to distance himself from not only all things Chino, but all things problematic even. Like, I think it was Paul Wesley from the Vampire Diaries who appeared briefly in the first season of the OC as like uh Ryan worked briefly at, I don't know, a crab shack, a little like fancy restaurant or something. I don't know. But Paul Wesley was his boss, and he's a bit fucking loony. And, rightfully so. Yeah, sure. Ryan should have distanced himself from him, but I'm not sure if Ryan should have like completely removed him from his life. Like, Chino's a part of you, Ryan. And there is truthfulness to Chino. Teresa is an incredibly truthful character. And that's a truthfulness that you can't buy. That can't be found in Newport Beach. And I think there's a truthfulness to it, or even like Benjamin Mackenzie's natural like attraction. Like, he's a very handsome dude, and it's a different kind of darker and more intense attraction than Adam Brody or like Rachel Bilson have for sure. Like, play into that a bit more, the OC. It's for a reason, and it's something that he should try to incorporate within the Newport Beach because fuck your ca- fuck your little plastic castles, all right? Fuck that. Why does Ryan want to be a goldfish? I don't know. That's the biggest flaw with the OC, but it's still wonderfully designed. So, like, I'm criticizing the show right now for not being the show that I wanted it to be, which is totally unfair. The show that it ended up being is a show where a kid from a poor neighborhood gets a second chance at a beautiful life, and he tries to make the best of it and be the best guest, the best brother, the best son that he could be to the Coens. That's what we got, and he wants to fall in love along the way. And he wants to make good memories and forget his past. That's the show that we got. And that show is valuable. I just think it's not as powerful as it should have been, because this is a great season of television. If they just had a bit more of a bit more quality, a larger quality of resentment, or some kind of, I don't know, some postmodern brat flavoring to Ryan. It could have been a masterful season, but it's a very good one nonetheless. I love the core four. I think Marissa is the most interesting character to talk about, but I think that Seth is the best. He's just consistently entertaining. The lines for him are beautifully done, and his personality is just so on point. And I love Seth to death. I love spending time with the kid. And I love that he is obliviously narcissistic, and that's his tragedy, right? The tragedy of Seth Cohen is narcissism, is self-obsession. But what makes it an undoable tragedy is that he can't seem to understand that because he's so self-deprecating. But self-deprecation is a huge sign of narcissism because yes, you are ridiculing yourself, but by ridiculing yourself, you are making the situation about yourself. But it doesn't feel as if you're egotistical because you don't have a very large an inflated version of yourself. Like, you don't think of yourself as this amazing thing because you're constantly comparing yourself to the Apollos around you, right? To the Lotharios, to the Greek gods that surround you. I think it has a lot to say also about like Jewish people within these ultra rich waspy communities as well. And it says that through people like Seth and Sandy, but Seth is just it's the tragedy of self-obsession because he doesn't understand that he is, because self-hate is definitely self-obsession. Elitism, alienation works both ways. Sometimes the world can alienate you, but I think what's a lot more lethal to do is if you alienate it. And I like that Seth sees within Ryan a truthfulness that he hadn't considered before. That was possible. Ryan didn't even have to do anything. It was something intrinsic within him that Seth saw. Ryan didn't have to put any effort into being rebellious. Seth just saw him as a more genuine person. And Ryan leaving at the end really broke him. I really enjoyed this first season of the OC. I have no idea where it goes from here. I have no earthly clue. But I'm excited to follow it, and I'm excited to engage and analyze it and just have a really good time with Marissa, Ryan, Seth, and Summer. I'm excited to see where we go from here. I want more interiority with Summer pretty immediately because I think that Rachel Bilson is a really cool actor and I think she's beautiful and I'd love to see more of her and I like to see her do something more complicated. I like to just see more Adam Brody. Keep doing what you're doing with Seth because you're doing it well. You're doing it very well. Marissa, that's a character that I have absolutely no idea what you guys want to do because she's been victimized by her family, and like her new father-in-law or whatever. Like her family is are now the figureheads of the community. So she's been victimized by the community as a whole. And she's being held hostage by Newport Beach. Like that's your most weaponized character. Marissa, I have no idea what you're gonna do, but I'm thrilled to say that I think she's in good hands with you guys, and I can't wait to see where we go from here because she's incredibly fascinating to watch. Seth is the one who I enjoyed spending the most time with, but that's mostly because Marissa was just hurt this entire season. Um, but I think for a poetic cause, and I found it very fascinating to grapple with. Ryan, I've said it a million times during this. Make him more confrontational, make him more confident, and make him give a damn about changing Newport Beach and make him see what was beautiful about Chino. Because if he's an intrinsically beautiful person, if he's got a great personality, it came from somewhere and it came from Chino. Why don't you try bringing a little Chino to Newport Beach rather than sanitize it completely for the sake of these idiot ultra rich neighbors of yours. Come on, kid. I just want to see more Kirsten because, yeah, she's a goddess. I had the deepest emotional connection with her because I guess she's just such a good actor. And I don't know her her stands against like her father and against the community and against like the ethos of it all, the narcissistic ethos. It feels really genuine and it feels like meaningful when she does it. Whereas Sandy, it's like it's a plot. That's what he does all the time. It's a plot device. It's what he does all the time. But I love Sandy. I don't really know where we're going, but I'm excited to go there. Thank you for watching my video about the first season of the OC. I'll be back to talk about season 2 with you, and man, I think that's all I have to say about it, but thank you very much for watching. I've been your cult boyfriend. Oh, California! Here we come. Probably can't see it. Probably won't read on the film or the video, whatever. But I have goosebumps. I really do. Hi, I'm your cult boyfriend, and I have just finished season 2 of The OC, which I adored. It's a lot better than season 1, and I really enjoyed season 1. First thing, right off the bat, these episodes are perfectly composed, like perfectly structured. I mentioned this, I praised this aspect of the show, this compositional one, in my video about the first season of the OC. Every episode, it has its own isolated narrative within the framework of a larger goal, a larger philosophical and like thematic texturing. Um, but every episode hits every single mark. You could call it formulaic, but it's like perfectly formulaic, and also it being formulaic really fits with the themes of the show, where the OC is telling us that our lives are episodic, like soap operas, telenovela, and the fact that each episode is formulaic means that at least like philosophically, you can engage with it as being our lives are also follow a formula. I would just hope it's as perfectly structured as this one. Every episode hits its mark every single time, and it's brilliant. And it really doesn't feel like clockwork. There is certainly a formula to it, but my God, the OC writers, Josh Schwartz, everybody really nailed it. Everybody, this is one of the best written shows I've ever seen when it comes to structure and narrative composition. It's really great. This is a really great season. And it definitely identified some of my criticisms from the first season. My primary criticism was with Ryan, and I'm starting to accept that Ryan is not Lucas Scott from One Tree Hill. I kind of hope that Ryan would go in there and be absorbed within the status quo and then be the catalyst for it to achieve a new sincerity, like Lucas Scott did on One Tree Hill, but they serve different functions. Ryan is simply not as deep a person. He's just not. Which is fine though, because this season got a bit darker. It started involving the darker elements of Chino, of class stratification, of violence, of sex through Logan Marshall Green, who played Ryan's brother. They recast the actor from the first season, and thank God, Logan Marshall Green is extraordinarily powerful on the OC. He is so fucking fantastic. One of the best performances I've seen in a teen drama is Logan Marshall Green as Trey Atwood. He's remarkable. He's fucking stunning. He's super hot, but he is more than that. It's like cathartic. It's visceral. It's powerful. It's dangerous. Finally, like I believe that Trey is from Chino. I believe that Trey represents kind of what I wanted Ryan to be like, but it met my criticisms and went, oh, so you want Ryan darker. You want him to have a piece of that edge. You want him to bring a bit of Chino with him. You want him to incorporate um, social stratification and like a pointless violent rebellion within Newport Beach. You want that, your cult boyfriend? Well, this is what it would look like, and it would look terrible. It would look awful. It would look violent, and it would look tortured and troubled. It would look desperate. And my God, Trey is probably the most pathetic and desperate character I've ever seen. And he's also just so like wounded and emotionally available while doing awful things. He can't deny the rage inside of him. And he becomes like infatuated with Marissa, Ryan's key love interest on the OC, and he sexually assaults her. He attempts to rape her. She beats him off, thank God. And like Trey knows that he completely fucked up. It's like Trey cannot help himself. He's the most impulsively pathetic character on the entire show, but Logan Marshall Green has a way about conveying characterization that is just jaw-droppingly aching and full of pathos. Not once did I not feel for this guy. I felt for Trey so much. And what Trey represents, I think, is less of a brother. Because if we went on that brother track, then we would be back to my season one analysis of comparing this to One Tree Hill, which came out at the same exact time. Since that, One Tree Hill is certainly a Greek tragedy involving two different generations of brothers. Um, like murder is involved in this sort of way, in a very tragic way as well. But I'm not too focused on the idea of brothers. We'll investigate that in a minute. But what I think is far more interesting, and what I think the point of the show was, more so, was the idea that Trey, let's not look at him as a hyper literal brother. Let's look at him as the darkness within Ryan, as those dark places that Ryan has been trying to sanitize, the demons within him that Ryan has been attempting to exorcise with ultra rich privilege. Like, you can't get rid of it. Ryan even talks about this in this season. He goes through the entire season trying to be a better person. Seth criticizes him all the time. Like, you call yourself a bad boy? Like, all he does is study. He doesn't get into any sort of trouble, including the underwhelming amount of trouble he got into on the first season. He is he has integrated himself, or like has driven himself to integrate so well and seamlessly into this ultra rich society. Like, he wants to be a part of it so much that he goes along with just about everything, putting up little to no protest. He becomes almost a protector of Newport Beach's like integrity. Uh, which is fucking nauseating to see. And thank God Trey comes in and challenges that. Trey is the dark part of Ryan that he can't let go of. It is a part of him. The past, your nature has a way of catching up with you. It's those dark parts of him that looks at Marissa and is so attracted to her, and that it becomes violent in a way of inferiority complex, in a way of I don't deserve this life. I feel like I am robbing this life from others, and I feel like I am also stealing the virtue from those princes and princesses who were born into this kind of SoCal royalty. I think everything that Trey does is a dark expression of the most intense parts of Ryan's character, which have deliberately gone unexplored because Ryan is trying to vanquish that part of him, and he wants to vanish within this fairy tale universe that he's found himself in the in the Cohen's pool house on Newport Beach. And Trey represents all of these darker edges, all the darker components that he can't deny. It's undeniable. This is a part of who you are. It's a part of you that makes you attractive. It's a part of you that makes you sexy. It's a part of you that makes you unique. You are this outsider, and people will respond to you in passioned ways. There are certain time bombs. There are certain bombs, certain explosives can't be diffused. Some bombs have to detonate. In fact, all bombs do. And Trey Atwood was atomic. Speaking of atomic, we'll get back to Trey in a moment. Let's go to Seth, Summer, and Zach. My name's Zach for 1 second. Atomic Valley. Seth's comic book has really started taking off. Seth is starting to recognize that his character is truly the tragedy of the self-hating narcissist, and it's wonderful. Adam Brody continues to be, I think, the best character on the show in terms of pure entertainment and just hard-earned value. He's hilarious. He puts in a lot of work, and he's kind of effortlessly perfect in his performance. And the character of Seth goes through a lot of changes this season. What the fuck was George Lucas actually doing on this show? George Lucas was on the OC. This is stunning to me. I'm stunned by George Lucas being on the fucking OC. I have nothing insightful to say about his cameo other than I'm shook. But Seth did a lot of growing. Summer. That's another part of my criticism from the first season. I was like, I think that Rachel Bilson is a pretty great actor, and I think she's beautiful, and I would like to see more interiority within Summer. Summer Roberts, yes, I would like to see more deeply into her because I feel like there's a lot of potential there, and they really went after it here. She becomes such a likable character, such an undeniable force within the core four that, like I just said, Seth is still my favorite character, but Summer, honestly, is probably going to dethrone him eventually because she gets more and more charming and clever and I mean insignificant to the narrative, but more than that, she gets more powerful as this concept, as this idealized form. Because if I'm talking about the comic book that Zach and Seth are pitching to people like George Lucas, she's featured within that as like some vixen. I forget her name exactly. I'm sorry. They said it 1,000 times, but I just started tuning it out every time they fucking said it. It's Vixen something, whereas, Marissa was Cosmo Girl and there was Chino Kid and the Ironist. It's all about this idealized form, and the idealized form of young, neurotic, depressed kids in the mid 2000s. Seth drew dozens of beautiful pictures of beautiful drawings of Summer as this kind of superhero, as this idealized form of herself. And she actually becomes that idealized form. She not only cosplays as the character, but she's able to impact some real character development through melodramatic superheroics. And she's able to transcend that idealized form to reach a new sincerity and to force Seth to abandon those idealized forms, to abandon the idea of the comic book, because the comic book is a falsity. It's a falsified version of the uh, totally dynamic beauty of Summer Roberts. He was in love with the idealized form. He formed her into an ideal, and he was married to that image and super protective of that image. And it feeds into that narcissism because he can control Summer on the page. Kind of. He still has difficulty doing even that. Summer in motion will always be more captivating than Summer in a panel, than Summer drawn, than Summer in ink. Summer in the flesh, I think that Seth, by the end of the second season, is truly grateful to be holding the real Summer in his arms. And that idealized version, he might be maturing to a point where he can see the damage done by constantly fixing characters into your life within a superficial meta narrative, and that's pretty cool. Olivia Wilde. I I f- I forgot she was on the show. So I said I don't have any memories after the first season from that last video, but I actually do. I remembered Logan Marshall Green when he showed up because I was like, he does something with Marissa, something really fucked up. So like I've seen more and more of this show, but I really didn't remember Olivia Wilde. Once she showed up, I maybe I faked a memory and was like, "Oh yeah, she's in this, huh? Huh?" No, no. I would have remembered seeing Olivia Wilde make out with Misha Barton. I would have remembered that. Trust me, I would have been 14 when this season was on. It would have been all I would have talked about in 8th grade. But she's great here. She's wonderful here. What a unique persona. What an interesting character. Um, I do like gay representation, right? But this is definitely more interested in fetishizing the relationship than it is in sincerely depicting it or sincerely expressing it, which is kind of fine because when it comes to normalization, when you want to normalize a taboo, fetishization is part of that postmodern process, and that's the point that we were at in this season of the OC at this time, and I'm totally fine with it. You can probably ask for no better pop spokespeople than Misha Barton and Olivia Wilde for normalizing gay relationships, because who would stand in the way of such a fantasy? I know that that sounds shallow, but that's also kind of the point of this process of normalization. But outside of that, Olivia Wilde did wonderfully. A lot of anger, a lot of passion. And actually, now that I'm thinking about it, while Trey represents the dark parts, like the yin and the yang, like he represents the dark parts of Ryan, there's a large part of Alex, who is the character that Olivia Wilde plays. Alex represents largely the dark places within Marissa. Marissa was the most weaponized and alienated of the core four at the end of the last season, being held hostage by this ultra rich fucking community and disavowing her mother and having a lot of drug problems, those sorts of things. And I think within Alex, she sees a girl who emancipated herself, a girl who has a lot of anger issues, a girl who doesn't have contact with her family, and a girl who is rebellious to a fault, who rejects the status quo and is still sexy and is still unique and is still valued and is seen as a threat to the fake plastic normalcy of Newport Beach. And she sees within Marissa sees within Alex an opportunity to reject her mother's ethos and reject the philosophy of Newport Beach on a on the most passionate, emotional, and visceral level possible, and the loudest possible way. And she accidentally like uses Alex like unknowingly as a huge tool to make her mother angry with her. It's about engaging with those dark parts of yourself And we do this as teenagers. I at least did this a lot as a teenager. You'd get these weird sorts of role models, or you date specific people because they bring out this dark and curious and morbid part of you that you feel like you have to express at that exact time. And it's a truthful expression because you do have to express it. Without Alex, Marissa would have imploded. Marissa would have been a goner. But it was through Alex and through her misuse of Alex. I mean, she did use Alex. It's just that Alex doesn't respond to being used well. And Alex is also undeniable. And Marissa certainly did have feelings for her. But at the end of the day, it's this dark part of herself that she needed to make peace with. She needed to call for a ceasefire with all the parts of her broken soul that are warring with each other. And I think that through her relationship with Alex and her eventual departure, she's able to come to terms with those damaged components, those damaged qualities of her own character. And Marissa went through a lot of change, mostly thanks to Alex being the catalyst that Ryan wasn't in the first season. So Alex was an extraordinary character. And I'd love to go back to Trey and just talk a little bit more, wax a bit more poetic about him because he's the strongest component of this season. He is the most powerful element because the stakes are a lot higher. Of course, he is shot by Marissa at the very last scene in the show, which why I have goosebumps. That Imogen Heap's hide and seek needle drop is one of the best needle drops I've ever seen applied to any show in any form in any decade. That what you say? That you only meant well. Well, of course it is. It's so fucking touching. I listen to that song once a month anyway because it's kind of hauntingly, achingly gorgeous. And when applied to a scene like that, it feels so tragic and somehow so preordained and so strong. I think it is symbolically relevant that Marissa is the one who shoots Trey. I think it's entirely relevant because she had already vanquish those dark parts of herself. And now she has to get rid of that dark part of Ryan that she was attracted to because they do share glances before he attacks her on the beach that night. There is a sexual energy there, and it's a sexual energy that is reminiscent of the first season, those looks between Ryan and Marissa, like bumming her cigarettes and stuff. Like she is attracted to a darker edge, but since she made her own darker edge vanish while incorporating it sincerely into her own new makeup and personality, which is all the stronger because of it. Those darker parts being embodied by Alex, of course. The dark parts that she finds attractive about Ryan are perfectly encapsulated within Trey, and she has to defeat that part as well. She has to do away with it because she was interested in Ryan in quite the same way she was interested in Alex, in a way that this could be dangerous. And she was a self-destructive archetype. She was a terribly self-destructive girl, and she no longer is. She's outgrown that, and she's been attacked, sexually assaulted by her own sexual indecision, her own catastrophic sexuality, her own existential inertia. And of course it's a violently awful thing to do, but symbolically it is immeasurably important. The attack that when Trey attacked her on the beach, it's so complicated that it's really difficult to actually um, take apart piece by piece because it works in a multitude of ways. Because I'm going into what it would mean to Marissa, but what it would mean for Trey, being an extension or a hyper personification of the dark parts of Ryan, is that yes, Ryan has that capacity, and he needs to get rid of it. He needs to identify it, challenge it, and get rid of it. Dark parts of Ryan His brother, Trey, he gets shot through the heart in one of the best television deaths ever in the history of fucking ever. Kirsten is sent off to rehab by the end of this season. She goes on a bit of a downward spiral. Sandy is pretty fucking annoying, actually. I loved him in the first season, but he was really annoying in the second one. Well, I lost faith in him after that Rebecca temptation arc, which was then uh, which was then outdone by Kirsten's temptation arc with Carter. But Sandy, there was something weird about Sandy this season. I didn't like his movements as much as I did in the first. Melinda Clark was really fun. She's a very fun actor. She was great as Julie. And Cal, I'm glad he's gone because he gave me very little to interact with. I did like that Cal is like the only one who still recognizes that Ryan is different, that Ryan could be perceived as lesser than for where he comes from, for his roots, which made for some very interesting dynamics between the two of them playing pool. And it's very interesting to see that Ryan went all the way to Chino to care for a child that he wasn't sure the legitimacy of. And Cal has a daughter that he at the very last second tries to remove himself from the picture. You know, like he at the very last second he tries to shirk responsibility of her. And it definitely shows that those from lesser means, those who are perceived traditionally and economically as lesser than, tend to be far more honorable than those who have the world in the palm of their hand. But still, this season is all about Trey and how much Trey represents to this town. I mean, he hit it like Rocky Like a Hurricane, which plays in this season. He hit it so hard. He hit this town, this ultra rich town, and the way that I wanted to feel in season one. I wanted to feel like something was dangerous. I didn't want see now I want Ryan to reach a new sincerity because he was able to engage and interact with the darkest parts of him that represent where he comes from and his violent, unfair upbringing, his violent youth. I've liked interacting with and engaging with that, and I definitely liked executing that. I did. But now we have to reach a new sincerity. Now we have to take Trey's death and incorporate it within Ryan's character and make him kind of an unstoppable symbol of new sincerity is really what I want. It's an incredible season. I loved it. I loved it from beginning to end. Summer was incredible, honestly. Um, Summer was irresistible. I do miss Anna a lot. I really do. I miss Anna so much, but Rachel Bilson really stepped up her game, and the writers really, they woke up early, bro. Like they really wrote Summer so well, made her incredibly multifaceted, but more importantly, dynamic, and also such a truthful character. Who, while she is flattered by the idealized form of herself within the comic book and the idea of her being some sort of model of comic book cool or postmodern superhero. Like she likes those ideas, but she's definitely not vapid. She is standing next to Seth Cohen. She simply doesn't have an ego when she stands next to Seth Cohen. She's an egotistical person, yes, but since she's constantly contrasted and juxtaposed with Seth, she seems to be so down to earth, which is a quality that which I didn't feel in the first season. So Summer was so good here, and I love that Summer watches The Valley, which is clearly the OC. They even mentioned the spinoff, reality spinoff to The Valley in this fictional um, OC Newport landscape, which is definitely like a Laguna Beach riff, if I'm not mistaken. Um, but that feeds into the overall ambitions and themes of the show, which is, our lives are maybe not necessarily cinematic, but certainly episodic with cliffhangers and guest stars and surprise twists and romance too, and meaningful moments that make life less difficult, our real lives less difficult. Shows like the OC offer a hand to take hold of the scene. Yeah, I'm thrilled with the second season. I think it was better than the first, and I really liked the first. Like I was saying at the beginning of this video. Wonderfully written episodes. Almost every character is meticulously designed, and it's just a pleasure to spend time with these people. And yeah, I think that's about it. I'll be back for season 3 though, and we'll see if the show can keep it up because this is a stunning pace. This is such a good pace. Yeah, the OC is looking pretty fucking masterful right now, and that is shocking. That's so cool. I love the OC as much as I do right now. Thank you for watching me. I've been your cult boyfriend, and yeah, I'll see you. I'll see you when I get done with season 3. I think we'll have a lot more to talk about then. You might not be Captain Oates, Charlie, but you are a loyal companion. I'm Zach. I'm your cult boyfriend, and we're going to be talking about the OC season 3 today. Well, I think this season is regarded among fans of the series to be the weakest part of the whole show. Um, I would have to agree entirely. The problem with the third season of the OC is that every interesting thing that happened in it is recycled. It's as if the season is reciting playing a game of telephone with the show's second season. The characters immediately regress. They go through beat for beat the same arcs that they went through in season 2. Season 2, the more I think about season 2, the more incredible I find it to be. I actually do think you could get away with calling the second season of the OC a masterpiece. The OC season 2, yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm really amazed by it. Fuck it. Fuck it. It's your cult boyfriend certified. The second season of the OC is a masterpiece. The more that I think about it, the more in love with it I become, especially with its handling of Alex and of Trey as these darker components of Marissa's type, of Marissa's romantic ideals, of Marissa's like social ones, of just the darker qualities, those darker places that Marissa is attracted to and needs to work through as coming of age is simply a deconstruction of youth. You have to come to terms and face your darkest attractions and work through them. And also, Trey represented in a large way the darker, more intense, more violent, and unpredictable parts of Ryan that Ryan was trying to vanquish within him, that Ryan was trying to sanitize a part of himself, and he realized he never could be completely clean, but he had to get rid of those darkest, most energetic, and most intense parts of himself, as embodied perfectly in Logan Marshall Green's spectacular, flawless performance as Trey Atwood. First thing, Trey's alive? Trey's alive. Really? Is he really? Is he really alive? What a stupid fucking decision. That feels like a studio decision. And I'm not going to let the fact that Trey's alive get in the way of my second season analysis of the OC, which is probably the best video I'll ever make about the OC. I went into extreme detail, the philosophy of Trey and what his death represents to both Marissa and to Ryan. I went into it in detail there, and it was beautiful. It was beautifully done and beautifully executed, pun fucking intended. What you say? It was fucking perfect, all right? And now he's alive. And Logan Marshall Green only says one sentence in his entire third season, which is, Ryan shot me. Why is he alive? That has to be a studio note. It has to be, hey, so what if you didn't kill him? You kept him in your back pocket and you pulled him out a few seasons later when the show it starts to become stale. They just didn't know the show would become stale immediately following the Everest peak of season 2. It would immediately become stale. Um, because the writers, it seemed like they took a gamble with certain components of the show and they lost. And then with other aspects of the show, they decided to play it safe. And the show just felt safe on account of that. So the show felt safe and messy. It felt like a sanitized mess. It just felt like a complete fucking it was boring. It was boring, to be honest, the third season. But yeah, it does kind of defeat the point of Trey in season 2 as this thing that needed to be executed by Ryan and Marissa. This thing that encapsulates, that represents darker, more violent sexuality, a darker, more violent eroticism or sensitivity that these two characters were definitely battling and definitely had to defeat entirely and totally. Trey should have died. There's no question about that. He should have been dead. And I feel like like I said, he kept alive so that he could be brought back in later seasons. But obviously, the OC ran for one more season. We never saw Logan Marshall Green again. So it was a pointless effort to save Trey. It's the dumbest fucking decision made on this show, and this season makes a lot of stupid decisions. Johnny is a complete bore. Volchok is not a complete bore, but once again, this is like you mash Johnny and Volchok together and you get Trey anyway. Or it could just be seen as a complete. Well, let me just defend that statement because Johnny has this kind of dark sensitivity and an enormous amount of chemistry with Marissa, and he has an unpredictability to him as well. Whereas Volchok is, I mean, the he's bad boy cliche to the core, and he's extremely dangerous, and he's an intimidating figure, and he's a self-destructive person. And if you mash those two things together, you get Trey. You get what Marissa saw in Trey, and then what she was punished by. She was punished by her attraction to Trey, and then was empowered to execute Trey. So mash those two characters together, you get the same exact philosophical discussions, romantic interplay, and romantic dynamics with, especially with Ryan as this kind of, he's an outsider even in his own romantic relationships in the third season, but it's the same exact steps as Trey. So there's pointless characters to begin with, or you can even get more basic with it and be like, this mirrors almost episode for episode exactly the Marissa going through a relationship with Alex and then being romantically interested and then assaulted by Trey. Like that, it's the same fucking plot. It's a retread. It's intensely dumb because season 2 did it so well. I think even Josh Schwartz, the creator of the show, called this season messy. At least the first half, he called it extremely messy. I would agree. The first half is extremely messy. The second half is just fucking boring. Either way, it's a lose. It's a big old lose. And I love doing these analysis videos where I get to go into the season and talk about everything that happened in it. But the problem is, every interesting thing that happened in it was done with more potency in the second season. So I'm not getting any value out of engaging on this level. Because every character at the beginning of episode 3, they are like reverted back to the status quo, the OC set narratively. Like they're back to their starting places. Even Summer and Seth. They go through like an up and down comedic kind of falling out and falling back in. I loved seeing Anna again. Like that was cool. That was a special treat for me because I love Anna to death. But it's the same fucking story, and but done worse. They treat Seth smoking pot as if it was some sort of coke or heroin problem. He's a rich kid in Orange County. You're telling me that he hasn't tried coke and like fucking Adderall and speed and shit? You're really telling me this? Because I don't believe that for a second. And also, fuck off. What is wrong? Why is Fox Network being so puritanical when it comes to pot? Oh my God, he's like 18 and smoked 3 joints. So of course he has to light a building on fire accidentally. Oh my God, it's just done messier this time. We don't have a comic book. We don't have Zach. Instead, we have Taylor. It's the same fucking season. As I don't know, the studio maybe went, or even the writers were like, we found a formula and let's superimpose it onto a new season. Let's just fucking have a do-over, which is creatively bankrupt for sure, and it's done in a far messier sort of way. Uh, Everybody is the same. Sandy makes no forward progress. He becomes a corporate hypocrite this season and then reverts back to where he started at the beginning of the season, just being a fucking lawyer again. It didn't make any progress. There were no consequences that I saw in this season for it. Maybe in the fourth, Sandy will actually have to face some legal issues for his mishandling of corporate, I don't know, warfare. It was kind of bullshit and boring. I don't care. Um, Kirsten is, she was a drunk. She went to rehab. She had a brief relapse, and now she's sober again. No change was made to her character whatsoever. We meet Marissa's sister, who seems fun, I guess, but her ex-boyfriend was Jasper from Twilight. A few of these, we see a few Twilight alums here, and it was nice seeing them. Nikki Reed, the goddess herself, showed up for a couple episodes. There was more chemistry between Nikki Reed and Benjamin Mackenzie than I ever felt between Misha Barton and Mackenzie. I never felt that at all. Like that has always been the largest problem with the show is that Misha Barton doesn't really seem to have good chemistry with anyone except for, oddly enough, Trey. There was some weird kind of dangerous erotic element between Logan Marshall Green and Misha Barton that they certainly capitalized on in a horrific way that really paid off. And they were just trying to do that again. But yes, the overall problem has always been that Marissa and Ryan just never looked good together. They don't seem right for each other. There's no chemistry. It feels very contrived when they're together. So maybe now that Marissa's apparently dead, like she's actually dead. I looked it up so I didn't look like a fool. So my season 2 analysis, I was like, it's so great that Trey died in such like a tragic and beautifully justified way. It was beautiful. So I didn't want to make that mistake again and have Marissa be alive for no apparent reason other than, soap opera conventions. But she is actually dead. Misha Barton wanted to leave the show. If you look into it, it's like a he said, she said, he said, she said, like roller coaster of who fucking knows the exact reasons why she wanted to leave, but she just wanted to leave. I want to thank her for giving us 3 solid seasons overall. Really, with season 2, she gave us basically a perfect season of teen drama, and she was one of the most crucial elements of why season 2 was so powerful. She was one of the most powerful parts of it, and she's always been the most attractive component of the OC. I think that she always best symbolized the beautiful vacancy of model homes, of these huge mansions that look so beautiful on the outside, and on the inside is a self-destructive, self-hating, self-medicating, damaged princess. And I think that that's always been fascinating about Misha Barton, and not only her performance, but in her characterization as Marissa Cooper on the show. And I will miss Marissa Cooper. The core four, we'll never see them again. And I love the core four in their own ways. I love all of them. Seth has always been my favorite, but as predicted from the last season, Summer is definitely the most enjoyable character to watch now. Rachel Bilson is extraordinary. She's extraordinarily cute and charming and hot and full of pathos. When Summer feels bad, you really feel it. And the show likes to express some of its more daringly postmodern motifs through Summer Roberts. I love an episode starts with a voiceover from her, and Marissa interrupts it and is like, "Wait, you're playing a voiceover of yourself?" And she's like, "Yeah." It seems to help characters on soap operas and on TV shows, so maybe it'll help me stay more grounded and more focused, something like that, or more motivated when she presses play on it again. Because if this show is dedicated to any thesis, to any statement, it's that our lives have become episodic to the point of soap operas or telenovelas. Our lives are episodic with cliffhangers. This season has an episode called Cliffhanger, which ends with Johnny falling off of a cliff, an actual literal cliffhanger. The show is making some daring postmodern statements, but it made all of those statements already in the second season. They're just making them, in a less articulate way in the third season. Yes, our lives are episodic with cliffhangers, special guests, romantic interests, and deaths at the season finale, and gunshots, and full moon kisses. It's one, yeah, it's true. I'm not going to deny that. But 24 episodes to do the exact same thing that was done in the previous season is testing my patience quite a bit. Now, if you were to argue that this retread, that this rewrite, that this a circular narrative was done with postmodern deliberation, I could believe you. I just y- they wouldn't have pulled it off. Like if it was the show's goal to aggravate me with this kind of rewind of angst, then successful, did its job. I've been aggravated by the conventions and by the frameworks of teen melodrama. You did it. But I don't think that's a tenable argument. I don't actually think that that's what was going on here because it didn't really have anything profound to say. But I do believe it tried to say some things, and that's why I don't think that argument holds any water. Everything that it could have said, I think this show has already said. I think this show didn't have a lot planned, and they might have had two great seasons worth of television planned, but by the third, just do it again. It worked the first time. There are touching moments here. I like moments between Seth and his mother, Kirsten, because I really liked at the end of season two. What causes her to break down at her intervention for alcoholism is seeing Seth, who was originally opposed to the contrived theatricality of an intervention, but he showed up there because he was just so heartbroken that his mom was battling something that he was really worried over. That he was really worried for her. And you see a lot of great moments between them here. You also see a lot of great moments between Seth and Sandy. Um, Seth basically calls his father like a corporate sellout that he's not a father anymore. He's not an available husband anymore. And it's nice to see Sandy be morally um condescended to. It's nice to see Sandy put on trial by his son and so effortlessly ruled to be morally guilty and reprehensible. And it's a truthful thing. And I really liked it. And I thought that was very sincere. I think that Seth and Summer are very cute together. I think they're very adorable together. I just feel like I saw everything that this show had to offer with their relationship in the second season. Marissa and Ryan, they're obviously at the center of this, at the center of this. And Volchok, I don't know if I mentioned this earlier, but yeah, you have Nikki Reed, you have like the Jasper from Twilight, you have Rosalie Jasper, and you have James, and James was played by the actor who played Volchok in this, who didn't do a bad job. Like he's good, and he looks like a guy I'd find at a bar right around here at a dive. Like he'd be the hottest guy in the dive. Like I buy that completely. It's just what is he bringing to the table thematically that Trey didn't already bring? Same with Johnny. What does Johnny bring to the table that Trey, Ryan, or Alex didn't already bring? And these are the most crucial fortresses of the entire arc, the narrative accumulation that is season three, and it's just an untenable one. It's just such a poorly designed season. It can't. The foundation that they're trying to build on top of it has to crumble, just like the model home. This show is really devoted to the idea of model homes, of the idealized forms of things, right? The idealized form of wealth, of community, and in a large way is a recognized token of sameness because there's nothing particularly unique about that model home that played such a crucial part at the beginning of the series and plays one at the end of the series, where that's where the core four are together for the last time is the same model home that had been burned down. Seth was stowing Ryan away safely there at the beginning of the whole show, and they returned to it in this one after it's been like rebuilt and properly furnished and shit like that. And it looks just like all of the other ones, especially to outsiders, especially to poorer outsiders. And I do have to say, I guess I appreciate getting a look at like public school system for Newport Beach, at like Johnny being maybe symbolically relevant in the sense that you bring one lower middle class kid into the ultra rich melodramatic fold and he will kill himself in like just 9 episodes or something. It was an accidental death, but it definitely destroyed him and everything that he built his character on. I thought it was interesting to see, but the show didn't really make any statements with it. No socio-political ones, and no truly profound ones. None that weren't already made with Ryan and with Trey already, right? Trey was just such a high point for the show that no one they didn't know how to follow it. They didn't even have the courtesy to keep him dead and to keep that masterpiece of season two masterful and shut and closed and unfucked with. But on the OC, every single theme and part of it is fuckable apparently. These model homes look beautiful on the outside. On the inside, they are empty, but they are wonderfully designed, right? And there's a kind of sadness to the spacious luxury when it is so empty. And those sorts of things do make you think of Marissa. Marissa was always the most weaponized archetype out of the four, the most alienated, the most targeted by random bad luck, by depression. Well, Ryan also had his fair share, but I feel like Marissa was always more devastated by the ultra rich community than Ryan was. I mean, after all, she was being held hostage by its king for a good while there. It's a huge wasted opportunity, I think, that if you're going to have Misha Barton for one more season, you're going to have everybody for another season of television, why you just decided to do the same thing over again. The same exact thing. Like when you get down to it, when it's boiled down to its base essentials, you told the same story with the same arcs for every one of your primaries. Nothing different happened, which seems to imply that nothing from the second season affected the characters. So you're retroactively hurting season two, which season two of the OC, yes, is a masterpiece, but somehow this season is so bad that even season two is affected by it, and even season one. It's just bad and boring, and it feels uninspired. I don't know if anyone involved is excited anymore. Even Adam Brody's performance it feels half-hearted now. The only one who seems to be really there and awake and fully available as an emotional part of the show is Rachel Bilson at this point. She's still there, super energetic, and like I said, full of an extreme amount of pathos and fun. I love her on the show, and I continue to love her on the show, and she's what I'm looking forward to most with season 4, with the final season of the OC. Everyone else, I don't know if they want to be there anymore, and I think that that goes all the way back to the showrunner. I think that they've said all they can say in 2 seasons, and yeah, they had some really interesting things to say with their postmodern teen stylings. Season 2 fucking nailed it so hard. Teen drama peaked with Imogen Heap's hide and seek, Trey being shot, and turns to see who has shot him. And that's the moment where it peaked. And it was a beautiful, beautiful fucking peak, dude. Fucking, it was so gorgeous. Season 3, yeah, I'm sorry. There's nothing for me to get into here that I didn't already get into completely with my analysis of the second season. If you're interested in the themes in the statements, the romantic and social and political and contextual, compositional statements that the OC, I think, is determined to make. They make them clearly in the second season. Go watch my video analyzing the show's second season and just take everything I say about the second season and kind of place it on the third because it's the same exact fucking thing. It's just that in the third season, the writers all of a sudden become messy and inarticulate. It's no wonder the show got canceled in the fourth season because the third, I think, lost a lot of the goodwill that the first 2 seasons built up. And God, I wish I had more to say, but I don't. I'll be seeing you at the fourth season analysis. Hopefully, I have better things to say. Hopefully, I have more things to say. Because the OC has the capability of being so, so super powerful, and I want to be here on cloud nine, head over heels in love with it again, like I was in the last video. But thanks, I've been your cult boyfriend. Thank you for watching me. See you in a week. We did it. We did it. We finished the OC. We finished it. The OC's done. All 4 seasons, baby, down the hatch. Really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed my time in Newport Beach. So the fourth season of the OC, if you watched my season 3 analysis video, which you definitely should before watching this one, it's kind of like a journey. It's a journey of analysis, of insight. Definitely start with season 1. That goes for every show that I cover. Start with the first episode because it's a journey, and we can really see the effects that this show can have in real time. And the OC, this is definitely my first time watching the fourth season. I knew nothing about this season at all. I was thrilled to see that I was having a really, really good time. Because if you watched my season 3 analysis video, I expressed a lot of displeasure. I really didn't like season 3, and I really don't think anyone likes season 3 too much, even its most devoted fans. Uh, it was repetition in its most nauseating and toxic form. Toxic because I think it destroyed a lot of the goodwill that the first couple seasons of the show built up. Season 4, they're having a lot more fun with it, and I feel like a lot of the ensemble is energetic again. They're devoted again. Adam Brody, who I felt gave a half-hearted portrayal of Seth Cohen in season 3, enters season 4. Uh, I think with like a newfound inspiration, he's reignited, and he's once again the most chaotically funny and awkwardly touching and sensitive character on the show. I started this series with Seth Cohen as my one and only, and I'm ending it that way. I think Seth Cohen gave me the most sophisticated themes to investigate, especially within myself, but also within the OC as a piece of postmodern teen drama. I feel like Josh Schwartz and the writers are having I think that they're just having a generally good time, and they're doing a lot of kind of daringly creative things with the fourth season. And I have read statements from Josh Schwartz being like, well, when we knew that the show was over, it kind of gave us all the creative freedom in the world to really try different things. And this show does, the season does. And it makes a lot of gambles, and I think it leaves the casino just a little bit richer on account of their daring and their postmodern determination. That said, the fourth season isn't really powerful. Um, the second season of the show is the show at its most powerful. The first season was uh, pretty sensitive too. Those first two seasons, I think the show said all it could say, and the third season was very upsetting from a compositional and philosophical viewpoint for me personally. And season four is fun. There's a lot more comedy, and the humor is usually always good, and often it's heartfelt, but it really isn't saying anything. Even the finale isn't honestly saying anything. In fact, the finale feels so contrived, and not in the usual like artistic like ways. Uh, it's not contrived because soap operas or telenovelas are contrived. It's contrived because it's desperate to give everyone a happy ending. And while I think that they're more creative in the fourth season, I do feel like the definition of scraping the bottom of the barrel is personified within Kevin Sorbo as Frank Atwood as Ryan's father. That irritated me to no end, like made my blood boil. Not only because I think Kevin Sorbo is incredibly annoying and a bad actor, but I also felt that uh, Frank beat his kids and his girlfriend or his wife. He beat Ryan's mom and he beat Trey and he beat Ryan. And now we're cool with them. And also inviting Frank Atwood back, I think it would have been fine if we never saw Frank Atwood again after he was exposed for lying about dying of cancer by Sandy. I think it would have been fine. I would have been fine with that. But keeping him around for a happy ending to be part of the Coopers is fucking vapid. It's a vapid thing for the show to do. It's probably the most vapid thing the show's ever done. I prefer the repetition of season three to the entire narrative drive or focus on Frank Atwood because it creates the elephant in the room of Trey. Clearly, Frank, Ryan is fine. He's doing splendidly. You know who I bet is kind of struggling? Trey, who you are responsible for as well, for creating that fucking ticking time bomb of violent sensitivity. Why don't you go see how Trey's doing? Ryan's clearly fine, but I'm glad you get to have your fucking dreamy Julie Cooper new family. Fuck you. Fuck the whole Frank storyline. Fuck storylines that create invisible problem that make invisible problems impossible to ignore. You made Trey visible by having Frank there completely uncaring about whether or not Trey is fine because anybody can guarantee you that Trey is probably desperate somewhere and could have probably used a father figure, a reformed one. So if you really did change, what a fucking stupid storyline. I didn't like that at all. I didn't think the finale had a lot of punch. What's good about the fourth season is a lot of the comedy. Chris Pratt is in this season as Chester, actually, as this ultra rich, far left hypocrite um, that Summer uh, gets radicalized by at Brown. while she and Seth are apart during the beginning of this season. He's very funny. Seth Cohen's very funny. Rachel Bilson as Summer is still adorable and incredibly funny. And I think that we finally have chemistry for Ryan Atwood because I never felt that, like there was genuine chemistry between Ryan and Marissa. I loved Marissa to death. I loved her to death, but I never, outside of that Ferris wheel kiss, there was nothing that felt passionate and truthful about those two destined one true loves. I never bought that for a moment. So I welcomed Taylor with open arms into the main ensemble as a love interest for Ryan because they actually have a lot of chemistry. And it was really nice to see that. And she was also able to bring out other qualities within Ben McKenzie. Like he is actually funny and um, he can be really sensitive too in a way that is really endearing and youthful and truthful. So I think that I think that the show benefited from highlighting and spotlighting Taylor in a very large way. So that was a good gamble. And also I like Caitlin being spotlighted in this season as well. Caitlin's great. Willa Holland, I believe, the actor's name was, did wonderfully. I really liked her friendship with Bullet, the insane Republican billionaire cowboy who is in love with Julie Cooper. And also on this topic um, of Caitlin Cooper, Caitlin and Julie had a lot of great moments here. They truly they were I truly felt their connection, mother daughter. It was really nice actually. And I think we were able to process certain philosophical remnants left by the death of Marissa Cooper. And I also appreciate that this season didn't immediately reestablish a status quo, like a narrative status quo for the show itself, for its premise, because I feel like season three did that pretty immediately, after the whole Trey tragedy, the show immediately set things back to normal and redid the whole season. Whereas season four, the death of Marissa is a thing that is constantly felt throughout the majority of its 16 episode run. And I like that Marissa's death does have visible and long-lasting impact on these characters, and that we didn't just revert to its original premise, so that we can build something similar on top of it. This season wasn't repetitive at the very least, and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it for that, but it doesn't say anything powerful. The season finale is a bit too comedic for my taste. The ending montage was nice, and it did strike my heartstrings with nostalgia and with like an affectionate, but it stirred my affections for the early episodes of the show by having me revisit them with Ryan going through the empty house. But even that concept had been done before. Had been done a million times before, since its very first couple of episodes with the empty model home. I talked about this, I think, ad nauseum in these videos, that there's something beautifully aching about the spaciousness of luxury within these model mansions, and there's something that is so tragic and lonely about these spaces when they are incredibly empty. Yet we have here Ryan looking at the memories within them that seem to give these places, it seem to animate these places with romantic and with romantic tension and with angst and with hope, with a lot of hope. And Summer and Seth get married. We had every happy ending possible. We end on Ryan looking at a kid who looks remarkably like a younger version of himself, asking him if he needs any help. Um, the show had nothing new to say. So while I enjoyed season four and while I enjoyed certain kind of like meta remarks about we could have squeezed a few more years out of this, a few more seasons, and I agree you probably could have. The show said everything it needed to say within the first two seasons. Now, uh, at the risk of, because just saying that could make me sound pretty fucking arrogant. So let's say once and for all, what was the OC saying? What was the OC saying? So if I'm saying that they just repeated it over and over again after they've already made the statement clear, what are they saying? Because I think it said incredibly profound things. Ryan didn't come into Newport Beach to tear it down or to even help it reach new sincerity. I'm not really focused on that class stratification there within that point of the plot. What really interests me, I think, are Marissa Cooper and Ryan. I think are at the center of the philosophical currents and themes of the OC proper, and that is the attraction felt between Ryan and Marissa. Or you can use Ryan as this centerpiece, as this less fortunate. Let's just use him as the symbol of the less fortunate, and how the ultra rich community around him, um, they feel inspired by him in different ways, almost inherently. Like there's something intrinsic about Ryan, and I think that that part is truthful. There's something intrinsic about those less fortunate, that drive others to uh, be better, simply enough. And what Marissa would see in Ryan is authenticity or danger, something that is unpredictable. And what Sandy and Kirsten see in Ryan is the opportunity to nurture a rebellious part of themselves and give back to to and to give back, um, to representation of extreme wealth in a way that is genuine. Seth, of course, sees within him uh, a representation of manhood. Maybe they all see representations within Ryan, because I think a lot of it has to do with projection. Because they spend a lot of the fourth season being like, none of us would have been at all the same without you, Ryan. And if you watch my season one video, I don't buy that for a moment. I don't think Ryan did anything that the characters wouldn't have already done. They're like, you saved her life, you saved Marissa's life in Tijuana. And if my memory serves, the only reason she was even there was because of Seth and Ryan, like giving her a ride there. Like, Seth wouldn't have talked to Summer. I don't know, maybe I do vividly remember Seth meeting Anna at that debutante ball early in the season too, and I think that that's what stirred jealousy within Summer. To begin with, I don't actually think Ryan did a whole fuck of a lot to help weaponize certain archetypes and liberate others. I don't actually think he was as thematically or narratively important as the show seems to suggest. What I am saying, though, is that he is an inspiration to this ultra rich and insulated community that these ultra rich barons and debutantes can and socialites can look at him and see within him something that stirs a part of them that they thought was long dead, and it's an essential part of the human condition and the human experience, and that part is called passion. Simply, it's passion. And passion is truthful first and foremost. It might be curious that Sandy and Kirsten leave Newport Beach at the end of season 4, because it's not about bringing Newport Beach as a whole to a new sincerity. It's about bringing certain people within that pocket. Because it's not like they're going to move to Berkeley and become less rich. Not really. Like it's not really saying a whole lot. Let's be real about that. I do like that they abandon Newport Beach and they go somewhere else, because it's not about that place. This isn't like Tree Hill or Cape Side being um like poetically symbolic of anything truly relevant. What's relevant to the OC isn't the OC, isn't Orange County. It's the people within it being thrust into a situation where they have to conflict with an outside element, and how that outside element brings a certain kind of random tragedy and a certain kind of random danger into this perfectly safe community. But how random elements and unpredictability, that's the only way you can be actually authentic or passionate in any sort of way. And it's because it's through Ryan that that happened. from there you can get the most interesting themes of the show with like season two being that just because Ryan is this inherently inspirational thing, there are parts of Ryan that attracts others that are dark, that are terrible, that Ryan is ashamed of, and those things are best represented by Logan Marshall Green as his brother Trey in the most spectacular performance of the whole show, and one of the most spectacular performances in all of teen drama. It's fucking lovely. It's beautiful. Um, Trey is not just like someone who's vicious. He's hypersensitive and he is I think he's unwell. He's psychotic, but he is so sensitive and he is so I mean honestly he is so attractive and he is so dark and intense. And there's a large part of I think an ultra rich community that fetishizes the dark and intense and sexy parts of the lower class bad boy. And that's best expressed through Trey. And I think that's when the show gets at its most powerful when not only does the ultra rich have to vanquish that fetishization that they feel towards the lower class by shooting Trey in the back, with Marissa doing it since she was the most drawn to him in a sexual way, and she was also assaulted by him. That fetishism was the fetishization was punished within Marissa by Trey attempting to rape her on the beach. And then Trey, that's when he's at his most vicious and cruel, and also at his most sensitive because he, I believe, wants to die on that beach after he does that. And when the ultra rich gives you every every like unspoken line of body language that they are fetishizing you, that there is something that they find sexually interesting or passionate or curious and morbid about you, then you are going to act into that representation by making it a super exaggerated form of barbarism, and that's what Trey did. But also Ryan being our representation of lower class, our kid Chino, it's something that is real within him that he has to exorcise and vanquish. It's a demonic element that makes him who he is, and he has to get rid of. It's his blood, and it's something that may always be more truthful to him than any kind of new sincerity he can find, because tragedy hits harder than sincerity, especially when the tragedy itself is sincere, as the ending of season two was. Uh, the more I think about the ending of season two, the Trey storyline, even season two as a whole, I'm fascinated by it, and I think it's one of the best things ever developed by anyone. I feel like its importance is cosmic, and the OC season two is uh, maybe the most masterful piece of teen drama there's ever been. And I hope that statement isn't taken lightly because I love One Tree Hill, Veronica Mars, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Dawson's Creek, and yet I would put the OC season two above anything else that I've seen. And I'm being perfectly honest about that. What's curious is that I think the OC season one is lacking some vital philosophical materials. I think that season three is just a half-hearted, kind of vacant repetition of the events of season two, and that season four is good for a comedy, which kind of sucks because it starts off pretty powerful with placebos running up that hill in the first episode of season four. It's pretty emotionally intense until we get rid of Volchok, and then it's just a comedy. I'm basically watching Parks and Rec, and I don't want to be. I want to be watching the OC. I want to be watching How Our Lives Are Episodic. I want to be watching a soap opera. I want to be watching The Valley. I want to be watching the OC. And the OC, I think that season two was just too good. I think it was too good for this show to survive. But bravo to everyone involved with the first two seasons of the show. Bravo to everyone because what you did is something that's so extraordinary that that like I'm forever like in your debt and I'm forever impressed by all of you. That goes for the crew, goes for the cast, goes for the writers, and it goes for even the network. Such a great job. You did such a powerful thing, and I feel that impact in my day-to-day life now. Like it's so good, and I like not a day goes by that I don't think about Trey, Marissa, and Ryan and the tragedy that they experience in the final episode of season two. And the hide and seek by Imogen Heaps. I think of what you say, that you only meant well. I think about that every day. And the more I think about it, the more meaning I can derive from it, the more meaning I can find within it. And yeah, you guys did so well. You guys blew my mind. But season two was just too good, dude. Um, I agree with the show being canceled. I do admit that there was more creativity in the fourth season than in the third, but not enough creativity to maintain itself. I like that we had a fourth season. I like that we had these 16 episodes, but I don't really care about them. I don't really care about what they said because they didn't say anything important. And the way the show ended felt like a sanitized or uh extremely simplified resolution to season two's intense complexity. But I loved my time with these characters. Ryan, Seth, Summer, and Marissa. You're here forever now. Whether you like it or not, I care about each of you a lot. And I think I learned a lot from Marissa and Seth. I think I learned a lot from you too. Marissa was always its strongest and saddest point, and the show was able to convey its most tragic elements through her. And if our lives are truly episodic, if our lives are comprised of cliffhangers, special guests, reoccurring love interests, and surprise kisses, and even harrowing deaths, then that doesn't mean they're not meaningful. In fact, maybe it means they're more meaningful because it doesn't mean our lives are contrived. It doesn't mean that like an episodic existence isn't necessarily a contrived one. It's one with many different storylines and plots. And I guess that season three's repetition, you could argue that it benefits this episodic, our lives are episodic thesis that I'm working with because of course things will repeat themselves again. Life will get repetitious, especially if it is episodic. Some themes are ongoing and unending, especially the theme of tragedy and the deconstruction of tragedy within a postmodern teen context. Postmodern brats, while they're always exploding like stars, they are also subject to the same existential inertia that led them to that outburst in the first place. Just because our lives are episodic doesn't really make them meaningless. I think the OC presents ample evidence to the contrary that if you pay attention and if you look out for the cues, if you listen for the lines, if you memorize your lines, if you're prepared and if you're ready, then you can be the star. You can be the star of your life. And if all of our lives are episodic, that also means that this kind of glamorous narration isn't solely the property and forms of expression of the ultra rich, of the incredibly beautiful. It's for those less fortunate. Those less fortunate can tend to make us a lot more compassionate. Those less fortunate tend to steal the spotlight, and for good reason. Because without Ryan Atwood, the OC would have felt empty. Without Ryan Atwood, without Trey Atwood, I wouldn't be so lost in thought. I think about those two brothers a lot right now, lately. I'm extremely impressed. So yeah, while I wouldn't say I despise the fourth season, I don't consider it the OC. It doesn't feel like the OC. The OC, to me, in my head canon, lasted 2 seasons, and Trey never walked out of that apartment. Trey died there. To me, the OC is a tragedy, not a triumph. To me, that's the way the OC should be. Because if our lives are episodic, well, every show has to end.